Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be going over the MMA slate for Saturday, December 18th, which marks the last slate of the year. And we've done extremely well, both with results and hopefully with, education and teaching you guys how to break down these slates over the last year. And we're looking forward to getting back after it after the hiatus, which is going to be a couple of weeks. So it is an interesting card with kind of a mixture of, well, it doesn't have any smash equity plays there where, somebody's mispriced due to a replacement fighter or just a misprice for other reasons. So there's not too much of that. So what we're going to be looking at is trying to find fighters and fights that are, have the good inside the distance props where, it rates to finish, or we're going to look for a contrast in styles such that hopefully we get a grappler that needs to grapple to win. In other words, the concept of win condition. If you have a striker versus a grappler, you probably want to take the grappler just because of the way the MMA scoring system works, unless you have a striker who's just a high volume striker that can just rack up all those significant strikes. But all else being equal, you do want to favor the grappler. So again, that's what we're looking for, fighters which either have a good inside the distance prop, or number two, fighters or fights where you have one grappler versus a striker. So let's just start off with, I guess, the first fight, which is a perfect example of it. You have Jordan Levitt versus Matt Sales. It's a pick'em fight pretty much, and according to the DraftKings pricing, let's just look at that as well, that is close to a pick'em as well. The thing is, though, is that you have a striker versus a grappler here in Sales versus Levitt. So if you're thinking about whether to target the fight or just target one fighter, the first thing we look at is this inside the distance prop, and the inside the distance prop is just okay. It's minus 130 or so to go under 2.5 rounds, about minus 150 or so to go to finish, which is all right. I mean, it's not bad. The good thing about the fight is that the pricing is good. If either of these guys get that finish, then you are probably going to want that in the optimal. The other thing I want to do is I want to look for a little breakdown here between these inside the distance people. So like, for example, Sales, you have Sales wins by TKO is plus 350, which is about it's similar to the inside the distance prop in general. You see like Sales inside the distance plus 240, but the Levitt inside the distance plus 140. So here's the difference. So they have it priced in that the majority of the inside the distance money is because of Levitt's finishing ability. Now that's good. That's good in and of itself. But the other thing is that Levitt is the grappler. So you have like everything kind of going on Levitt's side. Pricing is good, so there's no advantage there. But you have not only the better inside the distance prop for him than the other pick'em guy in the fight, but you also have that grappling upside in case he does not get a finish, that you're going to get a lot of DK points anyway. So I think right off the bat, I do think you have Levitt as a pretty strong play here. Parisian Mays, nothing to speak of here. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's got a decent fight, doesn't go to decision line, minus 175. That's fair. So let's take a look at the pricing here. You have Parisian and Mays. It's not bad. 8,600 versus 7,600. I think this is very, very fair. It's not much of a striker versus grappler situation. Let's take a look at the various inside the distance props. Mays inside the distance plus 130. I mean, that's like 3 times as likely as Parisian wins inside the distance. So I think that Mays is a very strong play. So right off the bat, you have 2 strong plays being Levitt and Mays, and I really don't have much interest in either of the other 2 in this fight. Chazon Pennington is going to be poor, bad inside the distance prop, nothing to speak of. Jordan versus Ewell. Again, not a really good inside the distance prop, not a good striker versus grappler situation. Eubanks Gatto, I can't imagine this being a good inside the distance prop. No, it's basically favored to, to not finish. Then you get Taffa versus Hunsucker. So this one is minus 550 to finish. So somebody is finishing this fight. But the problem here is that Taffa is a full minus 3-1. Now let's take a look at how this breaks down the inside the distance. You have Taffa wins by TKO is minus 190. So it's six. So what does that mean? About 67% of the time, Taffa finishes him. Now that's broken down between 1 round, 2 rounds, whatever. But even the under 1.5 rounds is minus 160. So it's likely to be in the first 2 rounds that Taffa finishes him. However, you have Taffa is being priced very, very healthy. Like you have Taffa at, let's take a look at this, 9,400. So even if he finishes him in the second round, that might not be enough at 100 points, at 90 points in the second round. And I'll tell you this, if he finishes him in the first round, that might only get to be 95, 96 points also, unless it's a big high volume, a butt whipping. If he comes out and gets a couple of shots in and knocks him out, it's not going to be as many points as you think, unless you get that, sub 1 minute, bonus. But again, these are slow plodding heavyweights. It's going to be, I don't know. I don't know if Taffa at 9,400 is the way to go. I do have to say that Hunsucker winning by TKO at plus 500. So that means what? It means 15% of the time, anywhere between 15% to 20% of the time, Hunsucker knocks him out. Well, what do you think about this a second? Hunsucker is 6,800. If I told you that, for example, 15% of the time an NBA player was going to put up a ceiling performance, you'd probably take it, right? Now it's a little different because it's an NBA guy can almost put up a ceiling performance and still be viable. But Hunsucker, in those 15% of the time that he gets that KO, you're going to have a $6,800 fighter, which is going to be in the optimal. So I do think that Hunsucker is pretty viable here. So I'll play this fight and I'll play some Taffa, but I'm definitely going to play some Hunsucker here. I think the numbers really bear that out. Okay, Henry Barcelos. Let's take a look at this. Big favorite here. What's the inside the distance prop? It's actually pretty poor. I mean, it's barely a pick'em. So this is not what you want to see. A minus 350. That's barely a pick'em to finish, and you won't really have that. Barcelos is not this chain wrestler that's going to garner all those, those grappling points. See, to me, I don't think Barcelos is a particularly smash play. I mean, we're going to get to a real smash play in a minute. He's fine, but between him and Taffa, you'd have to think that Taffa's the better play, right? Because Taffa is essentially like a 2-1 favorite to finish his opponent, where Barcelos is basically pick him, if that, to finish his. So Barcelos is not my favorite 9K guy. And unfortunately, Henry has basically no inside the distance prop. So him at 6,900, I'm not playing. Mearshart versus Stolfus. Let's take a look at this. Inside the distance prop is okay. Not perfect, but it's okay. Let's take a look at this breakdown here. Mearshart inside the distance is about pick'em. That's okay. The other thing that's interesting about Mearshart, though, is he does have some grappling. So he might actually have a little bit of grappling upside also. So I think that Mearshart, as opposed to, well, how do I compare Mearshart to, say, Barcelos? See, Mearshart has less win equity, right? Because he's only a 2.5-1 favorite, where Barcelos is minus 3.5. So I think these two are very similar between Mearshart and Barcelos. I would regard those as equal 9K plays. They're both plays, but I don't think they're the best plays. And Stolfus, I have a feeling that he's going to be really low owned here because Mearshart is coming off a really, really big performance where he was a $6,900 fighter himself, and he basically kicked the crap out of his opponent. So he's going to get a lot of recency bias, and a lot of people remember that fight, probably for good reason. But nonetheless, you have Stolfitz here who's being priced at 7,200. I guess that's somewhat fair. So I guess there's no real inherent odds in Stolfitz either. Let's take a look at him. The problem is he doesn't have grappling upside. So if he wins, I mean, he doesn't always make the optimal if he could grind out a decision here. So for example, I much prefer, well, I wouldn't say much prefer Hunsucker because he's plus 2.5 to 1 as opposed to Stolfitz plus 180. But at least if Hunsucker wins, you know that you're getting your optimal. Whereas Stolfitz wins, there's a chance he doesn't make it. I don't know what I'm going to do with this fight. I'm definitely going to have some Mearshart. I might actually sprinkle some Stolfitz. Maybe 7,200 is enough at plus 175 to get there. Elkin Swanson, no interest. Poor inside the distance prop. No equity, no nothing, no interest. Gamrot for Fahea is, it's a good fight, but is it a good fight that translates to fantasy? Let's take a look. Well, I have to say, fight doesn't go to decision is not very good. You don't have a clear winner with the striking versus the striking versus grappling matchup. So I actually feel as though, although this could be a good fight, I don't think it's the greatest DFS fight. I think that there might be some equity though in Gamrot. He's a 2-to-1 favorite, and he's only being priced at, I think, is it 600? No, he's probably 88, right? He's only 8,500, and that's really, really strong. I mean, as a 2-to-1 favorite, those guys are usually priced a little bit higher. I'm sure if I can give you an example. Not really, actually. Jourdain is 2-to-1. What's his price? I guess it is very similar. Sorry about that. See, Jourdain is 8,900, and he's 2-to-1. Where Gamrot is the same 2-to-1. He's 8,500. So yeah, I thought so. So I think Gamrot's a pretty good play here, actually, just on the equity. So what do you have? You have Levitt. You have who's the other guy? Said Mays, Gamrot. I think Gamrot and Mays are pretty similar, but Mays has a little more finishing upside. So I definitely think Gamrot's in play though. 8,500 is a very strong price. For the same reasons that Gamrot is a good equity play, I feel as though Ferreira is probably not the greatest equity play. He's a plus 160. What are you getting out of him? 7,800, 7,600? I guess it's okay. But I don't know, maybe Gamrot isn't such a great play. I don't know, I'm back and forth. I don't know what to do. Fortunately, I think there are better plays than both these guys. So I'll probably include Gamrot a little bit, but I like the other guys we mentioned more. Okay, so for me, the easiest play on the board is Ricky Simone, next fight. Not only is it 3-to-1 favorite, not only is the inside distance prop, even though it's about pick'em, the thing is that Simone is just all about the grappling. I mean, if you even just look at his game logs or his fight logs, I mean, this is exactly what you want. 6 takedowns, 7 takedowns, 7 takedowns, 6 takedowns. I mean, this is what he does. He's against a 40-year-old dude. He's a 3-to-1 favorite. So it's likely that he does what he does. And it just scores way too well to not play him. So for me, Simone is probably the easiest, I guess, kind of play on the slate. Okay. Next. Angela Hill versus Amanda Lemos. Well, let's take a look. Inside the distance is actually much worse than I thought it was going to be. Lemos has a couple of early KOs. I would have thought the Lemos would have a higher inside the distance prop, but that's simply not the case, which is good. That's the reason I don't have to play this. I spent a little, way too much time on this fight. I was going to play Angela Hill as a pretty live underdog, and I still might. But it's basically more on my take than anything else. I mean, I just had this, I just kind of like the Angela Hill side. So I wouldn't advise you to bet it based on that or to play it based on that. I just feel as though this is like way too wide of pricing. I feel as though these odds are way too high, but it's again, just my stupid take. It has nothing to do with, I mean, I'm not an expert in pricing, these fights, just kind of an instinct I have, but I probably am not going to recommend to play this in DFS. Muhammad against Stephen Thompson. To me, this is the easy. This is an extremely easy play, and it's not really what you think. You have Thompson at 2.5 to 1 over Muhammad plus 180, and the inside the distance prop is extremely poor. I mean, it's minus 200 to go to a decision. And the reason why is because Stephen Thompson is an extremely strong striker. He likes to stick and move. He likes to, super skilled with his boxing and his kickboxing or whatever. And that's why he's a 2-to-1 favorite. And that's why it's a low inside the distance prop. He doesn't really try to knock anybody out. He tries to outpoint you, which is good for him, but poor for DFS. So I don't like to play him at all. But the key here is that the Bilal Muhammad, I mean, he has one path to victory. Unfortunately, that one path is completely conducive to DraftKings scoring. He has to try to stake Stephen Thompson to the ground for the same reasons that Stephen Thompson wants to stay on the feet. So Bilal Muhammad does have that in his skill set. He's going to try to do it. Is he going to succeed? Probably not, because he's a 2-to-1 underdog. But if he is, that 33% of the time that he succeeds in getting the win, it's going to be because he's been getting these takedowns, which is extremely conducive to DraftKings scoring. And considering the fact that he's priced at 7,100, it's probably going to be a pretty popular underdog play, but that doesn't make it a bad play necessarily. It's not going to be like 40% or anything like that, but if you get 20% ownership on this type of underdog, I think it's something you have to take. As a matter of fact, Muhammad's the type of guy that if he gets a couple of takedowns and then Thompson gets up, which he probably could, I mean, Thompson's no idiot, he could end up losing and still get in the optimal just from his takedowns. So that's possible also. So I think that's a really clear play. Docus versus Lewis. This is going to be, broken record, but main event 8,300 to 7,900, 5 rounds to work with. You just got to play it. And if that's not good enough, look at the inside the distance prop. It's minus 400 to finish. So one of these guys is getting 90 points plus, which means one of them is going to be in the optimal, which means you have to play the fight, I think. So who do I like? I don't care. I mean, they both rate to knock the other person out. I don't think either of them has that great grappling, so there's nothing there. I would just play equal sides of both fights. Or if you want to get fancy, play a little more of Docus because he's more likely to win. Or you could see, based on my projections, who the higher owned is going to be and go to the other. That's the best I can describe it. So that fight, I think you have to play. And that's pretty much it. I think we did actually a pretty, if I do say so myself, a pretty efficient job of breaking this stuff down today. But just to review, you have win condition guys such as Jordan Levitt and Bilal Muhammad, who are the grapplers versus the strikers. You have Hunsucker with perfect win condition for his price. So between Hunsucker as an underdog, between who's the other underdog I had? 7,100 Bilal Muhammad. You play one of those two in your lineups. I think you're getting somewhere. Maybe you're lucky, one of them wins. Stolfitz, maybe, But aside from that, the keys are, if you want to play your mid-range guys, I identified Levitt is a good play, Mays is a good play, maybe that Gamrot, whoever you take there is a good play, and then the main event's a good play. I mean, you might not even have to go for those other 9K guys that we talked about. You might be able to get away with only playing, say, what's his name, Simone, and a bunch of mid-range guys, and maybe one underdog. Maybe that works. I do think that you could do some damage on this slate. Hopefully not to yourself, and hopefully not to your bankroll. Good luck, everybody, and I guess, see you on the other side of the year. Good luck, and let's get it.